So let's start it off this way. If I mess up, I'm just going to repeat the line. I'm not going to go through and reread this. Also added, if I don't know how to say a word, I'm just going to do my best to say it. But the moment we have all been waiting for. In the Superior Court of Fulton County, State of Georgia versus Marcavius Huey, DeMonte Kendrick, Gamarius Nichols, Redalius Ryan, Shannon Stillwell, Jeffrey Williams, defendant. Case number 22SC183572. Transcript of ex parte hearing in the chambers of the Honorable Earl D. Glanville on June 10, 2024. Christina Weaver, RPR, CCR, B1785, 185 Central Avenue, Southwest Suite T, 8955, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not going to do all the rest of that. Appearance of counsel on behalf of the state, Adrian Love, Simone Hilton, Assistant District Attorneys. On behalf of Kenneth Copeland, Kayla Bumpus, Attorney at Law. The ex parte hearing began at 9:10 a.m. Present in chambers were Judge Glanville, Assistant District Attorney Adrian Love, and Attorney Kayla Bumpus, court reporter Christina Weaver, and investigators Antonio Long and Rasheed Hamilton. The court reporter: okay, I'm ready whenever you are. Miss Love, thank you. The concern that we wanted to bring to the court's attention as the state was twofold. One, we wanted to have the opportunity to impress upon Mr. Copeland with representation present that he faces, and we wanted to give him an opportunity to ask whatever questions he wanted to ask before he was we had to pull him in the courtroom when the jury came out. The second concern that I have is, and I wanted to bring to the court's attention in line with the concern that I expressed on the record on Friday. I don't know what advice counsel may have offered or may be offering. That is their right and their business. As it relates to testifying, however, I do not believe that criminal exposure is a concern that is. Which interest is being spoken about and protected? Mr. Melnick relayed to Ms. Hilton on Friday that he had never heard of Statute 24-507, and on Friday, he sent an email. I do not know if he intentionally copied Mr. Steele and Mr. Sharp. I don't know if he unintentionally put my name on it, but he sent an email to Mr. Steele and Mr. Sharp with me and Simone copied, where he said, "This is the communication that I received from Ms. Love regarding Mr. Copeland." My response was, whose interests are you protecting? Yours or Mr. Steele's? Whose clients? Which client are you protecting? Whose client? Yours or Mr. Steele's? And Mr. Sharps, he wrote back and said, "You are going to get him killed. Have you, whoa, you are making him a target. F you," is what he wrote in the email. So given that his concern is that by testifying, at least the one that he conveyed to me in writing, it's not, his concern has nothing to do with exposure from the state. And if his concern, the court, his being whose concern? Ms. Love, Mr. Melnick. If the interest that he is protecting is Mr. Copeland's freedom, he did not convey it by asking us what exposure does he face in testifying. In fact, if he's concerned that testifying will get Mr. Copeland killed and he is not communicating with us, he's communicating with counsel for defendants, it would seem that he knows a thing or something that we don't. Additionally, and I will let Ms. Bumpus tell you, he said if Mr. Copeland testifies, he's no longer representing Mr. Copeland, which is strange because if your interest is your client, then it would seem you would want to be there for him while he's testifying. The court, well, he is on vacation this week. Ms. Love, I understand. That is why he has Ms. Bumpus here, and he has said what he has said. And as I was reading the statute, the thing that is, and I was reading the statute about this particular situation, and I was reading our rules, our ethic rules, rules of conduct for attorneys, and it is clear that if an attorney, there were two things that were happening. One, Mr. Melnick told me that he wasn't Mr. Copeland's lawyer. Mr. Copeland had told Ms. Hilton that Mr. Melnick wasn't representing him. And then, rather than Mr. Copeland reaching out to Mr. Melnick apparently was in communication with Mr. Steele and Mr. Sharp. And Mr. Melnick reaches out to Mr. Copeland and injects himself in these proceedings. What are we discussing when in no way a matter that Mr. Melnick was representing Mr. Copeland on? And that is where we are not allowed to speak with a person when they are represented by counsel. Mr. Melnick could not have been representing Mr. Copeland on anything we were talking about, because we were talking about this case and this trial. All that aside, we would like an opportunity for the court to address Mr. Copeland with Mr. Copeland's standing counsel present. Ms. Bumpus is looking at me like, Ms. Bumpus, I'm listening. Ms. Love. With his standing counsel present, and to allow Ms. Bumpus an opportunity to explain to Mr. Copeland everything that I had just said. Her concern outside was, what is the longest he can stay in jail? What I relayed to her is the statute says until he purges, the court, by testifying. Ms. Love, his contempt by testifying, the court. Yeah, 507 is a little bit different. So, Ms. Bumpus, so until the end of this, the court, he can be here until the end of the trial. Ms. Bumpus, that is what I said. To the end of the trial, to the end of trial is the longest? Ms. Love, no, it's not the longest. Even after a grand jury, if a person has been subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury, and even after the grand jury has, convened, has left, that person can stay until that person purges himself of contempt by testifying. The statute literally says that, Ms. Bumpus. Well, I'm going to look it up because it was my understanding that it was until the end of trial. Ms. Love, nope, Here it is, literally. The words of the statute, and so, the court. He could be in there a while. Let's put it that way. Either way, Ms. Bumpus, I just want to be able to give him the court. I know. It's kind of the statute says, that you purge, but I can't keep him in there indefinitely. I've got to kind of, Ms. Bumpus, right. That's all I wanted to know, the court. The whole thing is that he has the keys to his own freedom, and that freedom is if he just gives his testimony, then he's purged it. Ms. Bumpus, right, Ms. Love. And whatever that testimony is, we know what we believe it to be, but we don't know what it is. We can't talk about it. We don't, we don't know what he's going to say. We have an idea. We know what he's told us, Ms. Bumpus, yeah, Ms. Love. And our concern is, our concern, I know the court said essentially you're intimidated that Mr. Melnick probably told him essentially you should testify. They can't do anything with your testimony. But what he overheard being said was they're going to hammer you as if we're going to expose Kenneth Copeland too. Ms. Bumpus, you heard that? Ms. Love, yes. Yeah. Mr. Melnick told Mr. Copeland we're going to hammer him, the court. Now, to be fair, I think Ms. Bumpus, as an advocate or anybody, has got to tell him he's going to face some pretty significant cross-examination. Ms. Bumpus, yeah, I think that's what he meant, the court. He's got about 10, Ms. Love. So he meant the defense is going to hammer him? Ms. Bumpus, no. Just in general, it's not going to be a, hey, Ms. Love. He knew that. He had already been expressing that, the court. But, I think that if he's concerned about that, but it's all in the message and the packaging in terms of, I think Mr. Copeland is, a savvy person. But, he's certainly going to be subject to a thorough and sifting cross-examination, Ms. Love. And the other thing is that, Ms. Bumpus, can I just say something in Attorney Melnick's defense and response just for the record? Ms. Love, yes. Ms. Bumpus, the reason that he doesn't want to move forward with this representation, what I've been told, if he decides to testify, is that he doesn't feel like he doesn't know what was said outside of his presence, so he doesn't feel like he can adequately represent him or counsel him because he doesn't know what was told to the state when he wasn't there, Ms. Love. But the thing is that the only thing that he should be concerned about is the criminal exposure or the exposure that Kenneth Copeland has criminally, and there is nothing. There's literally nothing. The statute is quite clear that we can do to him about the only thing that we would put him in harm's way is a lie and a refusal to testify after being ordered to do so by the court. And by a lie, we don't mean like, oh, I think you lying. It would have to be, something obvious, because we can always impeach. But if he literally perjures himself, that's something different. We can't help that. We can't control that. We would only say, tell the truth. I don't care how bad it is, just tell the truth. So, Like he says, I didn't go down to the police station, the court. And I think part of his challenge, Ms. Bumpus, maybe that you need to assure him, look, I'm going to be there, and if you think they are asking you a question, they, being the state or the defense, is asking you a question that's going to bring out other crimes, that he's going to be able to look to you and say, can I have a chance to talk with you? Miss Love, that's exactly right, Miss Bumpus. Miss Love, see, but that's just it, Miss Bumpus. No, he's not. Love, hold on. That's just it, Judge. The problem is that there has been an assertion that people are representing, and I'm not talking about you, Miss Bumpus. Yeah, Miss Love. There's been an assertion that people are representing that their biggest concern is his best interest, and they are just not there. Miss Bumpus is saying she's not in a position to do that. Miss Bumpus, no, I'm not saying I'm not in a position. I'm saying that the agreement between Mr. Copeland and Mr. Copeland and Melnick, who I'm standing in for, is that if he chooses to testify, I'm to get him to sign this paper that says that then discharges Melnick as his rep. That's their agreement. I can't do nothing about that, Miss Love. That sounds weird. That does not sound like something in Mr. Copeland's best interest. That sounds like protecting somebody else's best interest. If you talk, I can't. I'm not going to represent you. I don't even know what to do with that, Miss Bumpus. Well, he said he does not know what was said, Miss Love. It doesn't matter what was said, Miss Bumpus. Right, Miss Love. It doesn't matter. And he didn't ask us. He didn't even inquire. What have you all talked about? He's been talking to Brian Steele and Max Sharp. That's it. He's not talking to us. And in fact, when Mr. Copeland asks to speak with us, Mr. Melnick barges in and gets between Miss Hilton and Mr. Copeland and literally keeps us from talking to him before he gets called to the stand. And that's troubling, Miss Bumpus. Well, I think what happened was, and I say this because I previously represented Mr. Copeland previously on this other stuff, so I know this is just what I think happened. I think how Attorney Melnick came involved was his representation of other, because he took my place. Copeland fired me and hired Melnick, and then this came about. And I think so at the beginning, Melnick was representing him, and then Miss Love. And it's criminal matter that he had, but that's resolved, Miss Bumpus. But when this case started, Melnick called me and told me that he was representing him as a witness at the beginning. I can assert that, Miss Love. Melnick has never in life, Miss Bumpus, this was 2 years ago, Miss Love. Melnick didn't. As a matter of fact, less than 2 years ago when Copeland was sitting in jail for something else he had done, Melnick said, I don't represent him. He told me, I don't represent him. And people were in the room. He was on speaker. He told me he didn't represent him. Now, ultimately, did come about and represent him, but when we were trying to get, I guess, Miss Bumpus, something, yeah, Miss Love. Copeland was like, he's not my lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. He's not my lawyer. And then, Miss Bumpus, are you talking about recently? Miss Love. So recently, Copeland said that Melnick was not his lawyer. Miss Bumpus, right. Miss Love. When Copeland was in jail, Melnick told me he wasn't his lawyer. But our understanding was that Melnick was his lawyer for those criminal charges. And so the person that came in and argued, or at least stood in for him on his bond and then on his subsequent plea, was Melnick. But I don't know whose interest he would be representing when he's not talking to us about what we've spoken to Copeland about. He could ask us and we would tell him, so I don't know why he would withdraw his representation of him if his interest is Kenneth Copeland. Then why would you pull out the court? That doesn't make sense, Miss Love. At the point where he would face the most peril, if that is his concern, if his concern is, I don't know what they talked about, so I don't know what, the court. And I thought that Miss Hilton had a list of questions for Mr. Copeland anyway. Miss Love, she did, the court. Well, how come you all can't, Miss Love? He didn't ask to see those. He didn't. And not only that, the court, well, you all share that with Miss Bumpus? Miss Love, well, Miss Hilton has already shared it with Mr. Copeland, and we certainly will share it. And generally speaking, Miss Bumpus, can I read this email that Melnick sent me? I don't know if this will help you understand what he's saying. It says, hey, Kayla, I wasn't able to see Kenneth today. He went on Saturday and tried to talk to him before his flight, but I've talked to his family. So at first, Kenneth was going to testify, but now he's decided to take the 5th. He may change his mind on Monday. If he does, then he's agreed to discharge me as his attorney. This isn't out of bad feelings, but I was not present when he met with the DA's office, so I can't really help him with his testimony. And then he gave me the discharge and told me that if he decides to testify, then he's to sign this, Miss Love. And that's just it. It's like you never know what somebody's going to ask, and if he's concerned about putting him in legal jeopardy, then it would seem like he'll remain to allow Mr. Copeland access to counsel when Mr. Copeland is concerned that he's about to walk into an area that puts him in legal jeopardy. Ms. Bumpus, you can't switch how he gets called. Miss Love, see? That's not in Mr. Copeland's best interest. That's in the defendant's best interest. When you switch in how he gets called, what does that have to do with anything? Ms. Bumpus, I don't know. Maybe he's saying he can't do it because he can't get his refundable ticket. Miss Love, that is not what he said in that email to you. And that is not what he relayed to the court. And his concerns have nothing to do with the court. He was very much, Miss Bumpus, I try to go back and watch as much as I could, the court, telling me what he was, that he was going on vacation. And I said, well, you inserted yourself in this. I said, really? You need to come on Monday, Miss Love. So he can't force Mr. Copeland to discharge him because Mr. Copeland decides to testify. The court, I think you are in until it's done. I mean, you know, Ms. Bumpus. Who, me? The court, yeah. I mean, that's just, if he testifies, you've got to kind of, Miss Love. And frankly, Your Honor, I know that if a person faces criminal contempt, they're entitled to representation if they want it. This being a civil contempt matter, the court, not necessarily. Anybody who's facing contempt can get counsel. I mean, you know, not anybody but Miss Bumpus. I can't stay. How long is this going to take? Miss Love, it might take some days. Miss Bumpus, Miss Love. And see, that's just it. And I think Miss Bumpus is put in a precarious position. She's not the one that stood up and injected herself into this. They reached out to her and she did him a favor. But ultimately, it seems as if Mr. Melnick is stalling and attempting to delay and hamper and hinder our proceedings. And that is a problem because that has nothing to do with the best interest of Kenneth Copeland. And that has nothing to do with Kenneth Copeland's exposure if he testifies. Just to answer the question about what he is exposed to, the statute is very, very clear. It literally says that no testimony or any evidence required under the court's order or any information directly or indirectly derived from such testimony or evidence shall be used against a person in any proceeding or prosecution for a crime or offense concerning which he testified or produces evidence under the court order. That is saying, even if he got on the stand and said, the court, he started talking about an unrelated crime, which is his biggest thing, I think he's probably thinking about that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could ask me about, Miss Love, right? There's a lot of stuff they could ask me about, Miss Love, right? The court, that is not known to a lot of people in that, you know, he could also invoke his Fifth Amendment with the advice of counsel if it was some other particular crime. But, Miss Love, but even that, we wouldn't even, the court, even that, they still had to testify. Miss Love, literally, right? The saw lays the court. Yeah, I mean, anything he testifies to, Miss Love, we do this. Miss Bumpus, okay. And then about the delay or stall, isn't it true or is it not true that he had a leave filed since December? Miss Love, we have nothing to do with any of that. He injected himself into this. The court, yeah, see, the problem is, Miss Love, he stepped in. The court, that when you get involved, I don't know, you have a leave. Miss Love, right, you, the court. And unless you filed that leave into this case, you don't have a leave for my case. Miss Love, right. Miss Bumpus, okay, Miss Love, and he did not, the court, so he didn't even have one. Miss Love, Mr. Copeland's been a witness and a name on this witness list since the court. So since he said, well, I'll represent him, I'm like, okay, well, you don't have a leave that's filed in our case. Miss Bumpus, okay, Miss Love. So he did this to himself and he did it to you, but we had to, you know, that is just where it is. And I don't know that. That's just where we are, Ms. Bumpus. So, Judge, you're going to make me stay if he chooses to testify? The court, I am because you're his lawyer. You're his lawyer. You're a standing lawyer at this point. Ms. Bumpus, Your Honor, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not ready. Miss Love, if the court, there's nothing for you to be ready about. I mean, here's the thing. I think the only thing you got to kind of ask him about is, look, here is the questions the state is going to ask you. All right. Is there anything else that could hurt you that they might ask you about? And as long as you have knowledge of that, then I think that you are fine, because the state's only going to get into this. Now, the reason you want to know what's going to hurt you is the defendants know more about Kenneth Copeland than anybody else. So they are probably going to kind of, Ms. Bumpus, what about if I say I can't do it? Then Mr. Melnick needs to come back, right? Am I going to be in trouble? Because I was only for Monday. That's what I was told. I was given specific, Miss Love. If Mr. Copeland said, I don't know what Mr. Copeland wants, it's his choice. Miss Bumpus, can he say he doesn't want Melnick? Miss Love, he can say whatever he wants. It's his choice. Miss Bumpus, but the judges say, Miss Love, I don't think he can be forced to have representation if he doesn't want, need, or say he wants it, because we have offered. We have done everything to clear him of judicial exposure. There is nothing he can say. He can lie. That puts him in, the court. Peril. Miss Love. Peril. But, he can't talk about a crime that we could then prosecute him for. The court. That is invoking this or some other place. Miss Love, right. I understand that. But, Miss Love, and we can't use his testimony to go find evidence to prosecute him for the stuff he talks about. Basically, he is literally shielded. Miss Bumpers, I would have to agree with you that I don't think that that's the concern. Isn't that what you said, Miss Love? Well, the court said that. Miss Bumpers, no, I'm saying with Mr. Copeland not testifying. You said you don't think that's his concern is criminal exposure, or do you think that is what he's worried about? The court, do you think that he's fearful of testifying for other reasons, like his personal safety? Miss Bumpus, right. Miss Love, that is what Mr. Melnick said to me in an email I can pull up. He said, Miss Bumpus, but you don't believe that. Miss Love, you are going to get him killed. That's what he said. We ain't gonna kill him. Miss Bumpus, see, I don't know anything about that email. Miss Love, we ain't gonna kill him. I can show you the email, but we're not going to kill Kenneth Copeland. So who is he talking about? So what are you trying to do? The court, that is a collateral second and third order effect, Let's pray it doesn't happen. But Miss Love, obviously the court, first he has to give testimony though. That's what he has to do. He's got to give the testimony, whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent. Good, bad, or indifferent, I should say, Miss Love. So we would like, with the court's permission, they haven't brought him over, and he was supposed to be the first one up. So I guess they went to get him. They might be over there with him now. The court, is he here now? Miss Love, I don't know. Judge Glenville exited the chambers at 9:33 a.m. Miss Love, we would like to just go into another courtroom and talk to him. Give you a chance to talk to him, and then give you an opportunity to explain to him. The court reporter, we're off the record. Brief recess. Judge Glanville and Mr. Chamberlain enter chambers at 9:34 a.m. Miss Love, Miss Hilton has been communicating with him. I like to grab her from downstairs and have her come up. The court, where's Mr. Copeland? Mr. Chamberlain, they took him upstairs to the tank in 9. The court, okay, can we bring him out Mr. Chamberlain, your chambers is being used. Your courtroom is being used. The court, let's bring him in here. Mr. Chamberlain, all right, so let me see if I can get that done. The court, let's bring him in here. Okay, thank you. We'll just bring him up in here. The proceedings stood in recess from 9:34 a.m. to 10:03 a.m. Mr. Copeland entered chambers at 10:03 a.m. Also present were Judge Glanville, Assistant District Attorney Simone Hilton, and Attorney Caleb Bumpus, Court Reporter Christina Weaver, Investigators Antonio Long and Rasheed Hamilton, and Deputy Houston, Deputy McPherson, Sergeant Brown, Sergeant Hall with the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. The court, okay, Mr. Copeland, can you let him know I got a hearing problem? Ms. Bumpers, okay. He said he is hard of hearing. The court, that makes 2 of us. I've got a hearing aid that's coming on the 27th of January. Of June. So I'll try to talk loud. Is it okay if Mr. Copeland? Yeah, I can read lips. The court, okay. Good, Mr. Copeland. Good morning. Mr. Copeland, good morning. The court, all right. I just wanted to bring you over and let you talk with Ms. Bumpus and see if there is anything that you need to ask of your counsel or Ms. Hilton or the state or the court before we bring you out of this morning. Because we would like to hear your testimony, and that is kind of where we are at this point in time. So is there anything you want to ask, Mr. Copeland? Well, I want to speak to you personally that I have never been truthful a day in my life until, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. My bad. Mr. Copeland, well, I want to speak to you personally that I have never been truthful a day of my life until I just made this statement right now. I don't comprehend none of this stuff that's going on. The court. Okay, well, the only thing you can give is truthful testimony. I mean, whatever you know is whatever you know. I mean, that's it, Miss Hilton. And what we'll say, and Mr. Copeland and I, we have talked about this. I'm not sure what your concerns are, what concerns that you have expressed to Mr. Melnick last week. But if any of your concerns deal with being locked up for anything, you can't. Like, there's nothing that can happen. The feds, Miss Bumpus. Well, that's not Miss Hilton. It is true, Miss Bumpus. No, I said that's not his concern. Miss Hilton, if his concern is safety, we need to know that. Like, that's not expressed, so we don't know what the concern is so that we can try to resolve the concern. That is what I'm saying. Mr. Copeland and I have had conversations before. I understand some of his concerns is potentially criminal liability, hence why we gave you immunity. The federal statute of limitations, done. The state statute of limitations, done. There was nothing. Like, I researched it this weekend again. Both those statute of limitations for what you and I talked about, which is 2015 or before, done. You cannot be prosecuted for anything you testify federally or statewide. Immune, period. So if that is the concern, there is none, because you cannot be prosecuted. The federal statute of limitations is 5 years. So anything in 2015, 5 years would have been in 2020. Anything statewide is 4 years. It would have been 2019. Finish. Next concern. What may happen in the street? You know what we talked about, what we can do as far as living and all of that. We have had those conversations. So I'm trying to express to you, we do not want you locked up. I don't know how many times I've got to tell that to you, what I've got to say to you. We do not want you sitting in DeKalb or wherever they got you because of this. I know you wanted to talk to me on Friday before you walked into court. We weren't able to talk. If you still want to talk with or without Ms. Bumpus, I'm here. But we do not want you in custody. You will not. This order, I don't know if you kept your copy of the order, but this order says you are immune from prosecution, any of it, literally. Judge, you might want to close your ears. If you confess to a murder on the stand, if we don't have any other independent evidence outside of what you say on the stand, you are immune from prosecution from what you say in court. So again, I don't know what was communicated to you on Friday. I have no idea. But what the state has assured you, which I have assured you in our private conversations with Mr. Long, as I'm saying in front of Ms. Bumpus, as I told you, that is what this order says, the court. And that is direct or cross-examination, Ms. Hilton. And that is direct or cross-examination, the court. So if you are worried about what the defendants may ask you, because they may know your business, but if they ask you about things that you might think you might have some liability with you, you can't be prosecuted for any of those. Mr. Copeland, I got family members watching this trial, and I don't want my nephew or them to hear the things that I may be involved in, and they think it's okay, Ms. Hilton. But I think that's a separate conversation you can have with them as an honest individual. Like, look, nephews, I done lived a life that I don't want you to live. Don't go through what I've been through. But that's something you can have outside of being in jail, because that's a better conversation you can have with your nephews in person. But they shouldn't have to come to DeKalb County Jail because you're being held in contempt. You can have that conversation with your nephews tomorrow in person. You can have that conversation with them. You can have that conversation with anybody. You know what's coming up this weekend? Why are we in jail? What are we doing, Mr. Copeland? But y'all did this intentionally, Ms. Hilton. No, we did not. You and I had this conversation, Mr. Copeland, Friday morning. Mr. Copeland, you knew my child's birthday was next week, Ms. Hilton. But what did I tell you when we met with each other? I said to you, you asked me, what is the one thing that's going to get me in jail? Didn't you ask me that? And what was my response? If you plead the fifth. And that's exactly what you did on the stand, Mr. Copeland. But what did I tell you before I got to that point? I told you the whole time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Ms. Hilton. But I told you, we are giving you immunity, Mr. Copeland, that I'm pleading a fifth. Ms. Hilton, no, you did not. Mr. Copeland, I told you every day I was pleading a fifth. Ms. Hilton, no, you did not. And we told you, Mr. Copeland, I told you my concern, Ms. Hilton. And we said we could give you immunity. You said your concern is what they know about you. And when you said that, I said, well, you know stuff about them. And I said, whatever your concerns are, we can give you immunity. Mr. Copeland, so I didn't tell you I lied on them to get myself out of the situation? Ms. Hilton, you said you were a liar. That's what you said. You said you were a liar. Ms. Bumpers, was this recorded? Ms. Hilton, no. Ms. Bumpers, and did he ever say that to Melnick was his attorney? Did he ever say that Melnick was his attorney? Ms. Hilton, no. This week, when we first met you in the car on Friday, we asked you, is Mr. Melnick your attorney? You said he's not my attorney. I haven't even talked to him. Mr. Copeland, no, I never said he's not my attorney. I said I haven't talked to him. Ms. Hilton, you said he's not your attorney. You haven't talked to him. Then we continued to have a conversation. At no point did you ever say to us, hey, I want Mr. Melnick here. Hey, put Mr. Melnick on the phone. Mr. Copeland, you didn't make me feel like I needed him. Ms. Hilton, but if you needed him, we would have said, if you have needed Mr. Melnick, we would have said to you, okay, just call him. So, that is our position. We don't want you in jail. We just want you to be able to purge yourself by testifying. Whatever your truth is what your truth is. But you've just got to answer the questions. We believe that whatever your truth is what your truth is. We know that you said before, I don't know what you're going to say on the stand, but we know pleading the fifth is going to keep you in custody. That's what we know. Now, how you answer your question is how you answer your questions. I know what you said before, and I know what you said later. I know what you said before, and I don't know what you're going to say on the stand because you and I never went into full details about any of it. But what I don't want is you to be sitting here in custody. Mr. Copeland, you did. Ms. Hilton, I did not do it. You did it by pleading the fifth. Mr. Copeland, you told me before you went to the judge with whatever the thing called you went to him with. You told me that I can't, when I asked the question, I said, I don't recall or I don't know. You told me that if I plead the fifth, why would I plead the fifth to something I ain't do? And I said that you don't know what I did and what I ain't do. And then you said, you was like, and then y'all asked for this immunity. And I was like, it was something. And then Thursday or Friday came, and then y'all go tell me, oh, well, we went to the judge with this, so you got to testify. If you don't testify, the judge going to lock you up. Ms. Hilton, right. But that was based upon what you, Mr. Copeland. But I told y'all that. Ms. Hilton, no, you didn't, Mr. Copeland. You said, why would I plead the fifth to something I didn't do? I said, you don't know what happened, Ms. Hilton. And I said, I don't know what happened. Only you know and them know, I said. But you never said, I am pleading the fifth. You said, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? Mr. Copeland, I told you. I said, I'm going to plead the fifth. You said, why would you plead the fifth to something that you know you didn't do, Ms. Bumpers? So if you didn't have immunity prior, is that what you are saying? That you feel like he didn't have immunity prior to? Mr. Copeland, immunity came Friday, right when I went to jail. Ms. Hilton, the immunity only came after Mr. Melnick. Ms. Bumpers, hold on. Ms. Hilton, the immunity came after Mr. Melnick sent us an email saying, my client is pleading the fifth. That was on Thursday evening at 0600, Ms. Bumpers. Okay, Ms. Hilton. So after that, that was an emphatic, he is pleading the fifth, Ms. Bumpers. Ms. Hilton, we came and we got this signed, Ms. Bumpers. Ms. Hilton. And then Friday morning came, Ms. Bumpers. Okay. Ms. Hilton, so between Friday evening, Mr. Melnick reached out to us and said he represents him. He's pleading the fifth, Ms. Bumpers. Okay, when was the last time you talked to him before Melnick got involved? Ms. Hilton, we talked to him earlier that day on Thursday, Ms. Bumpers. Okay, then how did, speaks inaudibly to Mr. Copeland, he called me. Okay, I was just trying to get a timeline. Ms. Hilton, sure, right. So we have been talking since last Friday. I met with Mr. Copeland last Friday, I think out in the neighborhood. Then he came on Thursday for court. We talked briefly Tuesday, and then on Wednesday he came. Mr. Copeland, Thursday. Ms. Hilton, no, I think he only came 2 days, so it had to be Wednesday and Thursday he came. It wasn't Tuesday, it wasn't Wednesday, and Thursday he came. And then on Thursday, once we left, is when Mr. Melnick reached out to us and said, my client is pleading the fifth, and at this point is when we went with the next morning and got the immunity motion. And then we spoke on Friday morning. I handed Mr. Copeland this agreement and let him know that he has immunity and that's anything he says we can't use. And then Mr. Melnick came, and then we had court. Miss Bumpus, so you are pretty much saying you didn't ask for this. Mr. Copeland, I didn't. Miss Hilton, but we gave it. He doesn't have to ask for it, Miss Bumpus. I know. I mean, he's just saying, Miss Hilton, right. He doesn't have to ask for it. But to alleviate whatever his concerns were, we gave him immunity. He didn't have to ask for it, Miss Bumpus. So if he wouldn't have had this, I'm just saying this so he can understand it. I'm walking him through. Miss Hilton, Miss Bumpus, would he still have had to testify, or he would have been able to plead the fifth? That's what he said, Miss Hilton. If he did not have immunity, Miss Bumpus, yes. Miss Hilton, yes, he could plead the fifth. Miss Copeland, that's what Miss Bumpus, that's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say he didn't ask for this, Miss Hilton, but he doesn't have to ask for it. Now that we have given it to him, because that's on us. So now that we have given it to him, it's an order. He can still choose if this is the road he wants to take, then he'll just stay in custody until the trial is over. And when we say the trial is over, every last defendant has been tried. Not just these 6, the other ones too. Mr. Copeland, I done did longer time. I'm sorry, y'all. My bad, man. Mr. Copeland, I done did longer time. Miss Hilton, all right, Mr. Copeland, I'm telling you that you are literally immune from prosecution from anything else you say. That's that. So the choice is always up to you. But we wanted to put on the record, the state does not want you in custody. What the state would like for you to do is purge yourself from Mr. Copeland. What purge yourself mean, Ms. Hilton? Meaning that you are no longer in custody, and the way that you purge yourself is to testify. That is kind of how it happens. That is what the state wants you to do. We don't want you in custody. I can't say it any other different way. We don't want you in custody. The only thing that's holding you is you refusing to testify the court. So, you have any questions, any other questions? Basically, if you invoke the fifth, Ms. Copeland, I don't know what's going on. I don't trust anybody. I trust her word, but I don't know what's going on, Your Honor. Ms. Hilton, this is your insurance. I don't know if you want to break that down to him, Ms. Bumpus. Well, he doesn't want that, the court, but he's been given it. See, that's the challenge, Mr. Copeland, is that if they didn't give you immunity, you could invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. But what the state decided is that they said your testimony is worth more to them at this point in time, and they really want to know what you had to say. So they have made from the state's perspective, they have made a decision to give you immunity, so you no longer can invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. You had to testify. So that's the difference in this particular scenario, is that they have taken away, well, you can still invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. You still can do that, but the consequence of invoking is that you will just remain in custody. So if you testify, you get out of custody, and you stay out of custody until you are done, Mr. Copeland. And then if I don't testify, I have to stay until when? The court, until the trial is over, until all the defendants have been. I've got these 6 that we have right now, and then there's another 6. Ms. Hilton, no, there's another 12. The court, there's another 12 or thereabouts that are still outstanding in various forms or another. Mr. Copeland, can I speak with her for a second? The court, yeah, sure. Judge Glanville, Assistant District Attorney Simone Hilton, Court Reporter Christina Weaver, and investigators Antonio Long and Rasheed Hamilton left chambers at 10:17 a.m. and returned at 10:33 a.m. Mr. Copeland, my question is, I can ask you a question? The court, yes. Mr. Copeland, so my question is, so what I was just asking her was, if you ask me a question and you feel as in I was lying about it, will you lock me back up? Ms. Hilton, no. So you were saying I didn't talk to Demekion. Well, no, I can't talk about that because the judge was in there. You are asking, for example, if you said before the sky is blue and I asked you to understand what color is the sky and you say it was red, I'm going to say no. Back before you said it was blue is what you are trying to ask me. Ms. Bumpus, so explain the independent evidence. If he says he did something and he's not telling the truth, what happens? Ms. Hilton, if he said he did something and he did not do that thing, Ms. Bumpus, if you believe he did not, so if you believe he's lying about that, then no. If he admits to doing something on the stand, Ms. Bumpus, Ms. Hilton, and he did not do that thing, Ms. Bumpus, I'm going to say, is this the first time you are saying that, Ms. Bumpus? And you have independent evidence to prove it wasn't him, then what? Then nothing. What do you mean? Like, Ms. Bumpus, so then he will be fine. Ms. Hilton, yes, but Ms. Bumpus, so you are okay with him if he got on the stand and said things that weren't true? Ms. Hilton, no. I want him to tell the truth. What I've always said to you, I want you to tell the truth. I don't know what's going to come out of your mouth. I expect you to tell the truth. If you say something that is inconsistent with what you said before, then I'm going to ask you about the inconsistencies. But I expect you to tell the truth. What you go on the stand and do, I don't know. I don't know what you're going to do. I want you to tell the truth, but I will deal with you not. You saying something different in a manner that I normally do. Mr. Copeland, if I'm saying something different, right? So when the police question me, they didn't question me every time they lock me up. I don't know how many times that was. I done told them whatever different story I could think of to try to finesse my way out of the situation. I don't recall what I done told them. Ms. Hilton, okay, so you could say, I don't recall. That is how that works. I don't recall, Ms. Bumpus. And he can say that to every single question. Ms. Hilton, I will hope that is not the truth, because I think there are some things you do recall and some things you don't. But the things you don't recall, you don't recall. And then I will go through my process of what I do. You can talk to him about what impeachment is. That won't get you locked up. Impeachment will not get you locked up. You can talk to him about what impeachment is. If he says, I don't recall, Mr. Copeland, what will get me locked up? Ms. Hilton, what did I tell you? Mr. Copeland, I don't know. Ms. Hilton, what you did Friday, I plead the fifth. If the court instructs you, Mr. Copeland, so the only thing that gets me locked up is pleading the fifth. Ms. Bumpus, yes. Ms. Hilton, the court instructs you, you need to answer the question. You say, again, I plead the fifth. Again, that's what's going to get you locked up. But if you answer the question, that will not get you locked up, Mr. Copeland. So if you don't want me in jail, why you just don't let me go after the trial over with? Ms. Hilton, you are in jail because you are not answering the questions, the court, because you have been given immunity. Ms. Hilton, because you have been given immunity. You are only in jail because you got up here, Mr. Copeland. Well, what about this? I answer the questions, you take away immunity. I answer the questions and I plead the fifth. No, Mr. Copeland, to answer the questions that I feel incriminate me, Ms. Hilton. But then that's Mr. Copeland. I won't plead the fifth to things that don't incriminate me. The court, the state can still give you immunity. They can give immunity to whoever they want, okay? And they can make that choice. I don't even make that choice. So if they, like I said earlier, they want your testimony. They figure that's just, the jury needs to hear what you had to say, good, bad, or indifferent. And what Ms. Hilton is telling you is just tell the truth as you know it and let her worry about, even though you may have said different versions of whatever, that's for impeachment. That's not going to get you in trouble. What will get you in trouble is if you invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege because you have been given immunity. Or as Ms. Love said this morning, remember, Ms. Love said if you lie, if you overtly lie about something, like if you tell a bold-faced whopper, then they can indict you on that particular charge. That particular false statement, Mr. Copeland. That's what they gonna do, Ms. Bumpus. That is what I was saying. You will be right back here, Ms. Hilton. But if you say something that you did not do, like you admit to something you know you did not do, whether you, Mr. Copeland, like murder, don't have no statute of limitations, right, Ms. Hilton? But if you didn't do it, I can't charge you with something you didn't do because I don't have any other choice but you saying it, Mr. Copeland. But y'all don't like Ms. Bumpers. You can charge him with false statements and he'll be back in jail. That is what I'm trying to say, Ms. Hilton. But if I know that you are lying about that, I do not intend to do that. I know right now he's lying. If I know right now he's lying, I know he's lying. I'm not going to charge you because I don't know your reason for doing that. But I'm not going to charge you when I don't know, when I know you didn't do what you're trying to say you did now. And that can be part of this. I know you didn't do it, Mr. Copeland, but it's up to the judge to do that. Ms. Hilton, no, it's up to the state to bring charges to court. I don't have anything to do with that, Ms. Hilton. He has nothing to do with bringing charges. That's up to the state of Georgia, Mr. Copeland. Can I talk to my family and I'll make my decision right after I hang up the phone? Ms. Bumpus. He's saying he hasn't been able to speak to anybody. Ms. Hilton, his sister just called us. Mr. Copeland, y'all done me wrong. Y'all just hold me in jail. Don't let me get no PIN number, no nothing. Ms. Hilton, we have no knowledge. We did not know that. You, Ms. Bumpus, he hasn't been able to do anything, speak to anyone. The jail system down, but y'all still putting people in. Ms. Hilton, that part, I don't know. I know we have been in communication with your sister. Your sister actually texted Miss Les Scott. I don't know how to say that name, so I don't care. To make sure you are okay, we told her we physically had laid eyes on you. I'll leave that up to the sheriffs. I don't know. Brief pause, Mr. Copeland. So what you think she's saying, Miss Hilton? I can tell you right now, Mr. Copeland, I'm talking about that locking me back up. Miss Hilton, we would have to bring charges. There would be no incentive, Mr. Copeland. Y'all will. Miss Hilton, we already had this discussion, Mr. Copeland. Look what you did to me. You waited until Friday and did this. I done told you every day before Friday came, I was pleading the fifth. Miss Hilton, no, you did not. As a matter of fact, our last to court, Mr. Copeland, let's see if we can get beyond this, okay? Beyond your concern is you could have invoked your Fifth Amendment privilege. The state could have turned around and said, stop. Had me go ahead, filed that motion and giving you immunity. It was going to, they make the decision. They decide to make it on Friday. So even if you would have been more comfortable testifying and invoking your Fifth Amendment privilege, they could decide you as a witness, they want your testimony more than they do invoking your Fifth Amendment privilege, so they give you immunity. They give you immunity, so you got to testify truthfully as to your knowledge of particular incident is. So they could have done that anyway. Even if they put you on the stand, they could have said stop and go ahead and give you immunity. They could have done that, Mr. Copeland. So I can get in some type of writing that if I was to testify that if she feels as I lied about anything, they won't lock me back up, the court. Let me have that, Ms. Bumpus. Ms. Bumpus has document to court. Brief pause. The court, Mr. Copeland, on page 2 of the order pursuant to OCGA 24-5-507. However, no testimony given by Kenneth Copeland as required under this order or any information directly or indirectly derived from the testimony of Kenneth Copeland given by Kenneth Copeland as required under this order shall be used against said Kenneth Copeland in any proceeding or prosecution for a crime or offense concerning which he testifies under this order. Okay. So you testify about some aggravated assault or murder, they can't prosecute you on it because that is what it says on the order, okay? The only thing that will get you in trouble is this next little paragraph. Kenneth Copeland shall be subject to prosecution or to penalty or forfeiture for any perjury, fail swearing, or contempt committed in testifying or failing to testify in accordance with this order. However, it is ordered that Kenneth Copeland shall not be required to produce evidence that can be used in any other court in the state or United States or any other state. So basically, if you commit perjury, false swearing, or contempt committed in testifying, that means if you just invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege or failing to testify, you say, I'm not going to testify? All right. So the only two real things you can kind of get in trouble for the perjury and false swearing as long as you tell the truth. Now, as Ms. Hilton and Ms. Bumpus said earlier, you may have told or been asked about situations over and over again. They may have changed. What the state is asking you to do is tell the version that really is the truth. If they want to impeach you, they can do that. Or if other sides want to impeach you, they can do that. You won't get in trouble for that. Mr. Copeland, you said I will? The court, you will not. You will not. Impeachment is not perjury or false swearing, okay, Mr. Copeland? But she said I could purge myself, though. Ms. Hilton, no. We're saying two different things. Sorry. Perjury is if you get on the stand and you just say a bold-faced lie. Just something that is just wrong. You can say, I did something, and all the other times I said I have not done it. And really, while it's perjury, it's really just an inconsistent statement. Like I said, if you get on the stand and say, I did X, but in 2015, I never did X. That is what I'm going to impeach. I'm going to impeach you on everything you said in 2015, meaning I'm going to say, okay, today you said I did X, but in 2015, Lieutenant Dean and in the chambers. Lieutenant Dean, we have a security issue. We need to stop for a minute. If we can stop for a second, please. Judge Glanville and Lieutenant Dean exited chambers. At 10:45 a.m., Judge Glanville returns to chambers. At 10:47, Ms. Hilton, I don't know what was told to you on Friday. I have no reason to put you in prison. You have spent enough time in prison for YSL, period. So why would I want that for you? That doesn't make no sense. I said it to you before, and I will say it to you again in front of all these people. It makes no sense. Mr. Copeland, you just said I'm going to have to stay in jail until the last. Ms. Hilton, if you don't testify, Get this part through your head. If you don't testify, that is the only thing that is holding you. That is literally you. Sorry, I lost my place. That is literally the only thing holding you right now is the fact you kept saying, I'm not going to testify. Well, you haven't said it today. I'm not testifying. I plead the fifth. If you get up there and I want to tell the truth, like I said before, if you don't recall certain things, you can say I don't recall. That's fine. I want you to tell the truth. I don't expect you to remember every single detail from 2015. I just don't. No one here does. But what I do expect for you to do is answer questions so we can get through this. So you can go home, be with your baby for her birthday. All these dogs deliver their babies. Go talk to your nephews and do all these things. Mr. Copeland, how do you know about my dogs? Miss Hilton, because you told me. Jesus. Mr. Copeland, okay. Miss Bumpers, what's wrong? Mr. Copeland, I'm stressing at another level like Miss Bumpers. I mean, I'm saying, Mr. Copeland, I'm weak. Man, I'm not playing. I'm dead serious, man, like Miss Hilton. This is what our position is. We do not want him in custody. We want him to tell the truth. We want him to testify. That's what get him out of jail. And, you had to make Miss Bumpers. If he decides in 2 weeks he wants to testify, then what? If he wants to stay in jail for 2 weeks, then I don't know why you would want to stay in jail for 2 weeks. I have no idea. Miss Bumpers, he just feels like he's under a lot of pressure right this second. Mr. Copeland, even at the jail, you just can't give me house arrest? Miss Hilton, no. You can go home by taking a stand and testify. That's what the court, and come back tomorrow. Miss Hilton, we keep saying yet, but there's no crime. We keep saying yet. I don't know who is telling you about a crime. There is no crime. You have done nothing wrong except for not Mr. Copeland. So why am I in jail then? Miss Hilton, because you aren't testifying. Mr. Copeland, but that ain't nothing wrong. It's not a crime. Miss Hilton, it's not a crime, but you're in civil contempt. The court, 2 things. Because you invoked your privilege after you've been given immunity, that is why you are in custody, because you get out by testifying, so you testify. You get out. That's why I was going to bring you, why I brought you here early today, to inquire about that. You can remain and hold your position of invoking the fifth or not testifying, but you can go back to prison. You go back to jail because that's Mr. Copeland. You can't sentence me? Ms. Bumpers, there's no sentence. The court, there is no sentence. The contempt is compliance. They want your testimony. That is all they want. Whatever that may be, Mr. Copeland. I don't know what it is, Your Honor. Ms. Hilton, so listen. You are in jail for failing to testify. The court, failing to testify. Ms. Hilton, not for nothing else. There is no crime. You ain't done nothing. I don't know if people are telling you that we're going to charge you with nothing. We are not charging you. The state charges you. There is nothing we're charging you with. You are only in custody because you have decided not to testify. That is it. Once you decide to testify, the court. Remember that word you were talking about, purge? Mr. Copeland? The court. Okay. You can purge right now. Purge, get yourself out of jail just by testifying. Mr. Copeland, I can purge to get out of jail? The court. Yes, just by testifying. Mr. Not perjury. The court, purge. Meaning you can get out of jail. You can get out of jail, out of custody by testifying. Mr. Copeland. And what about the other one? The word perjury. The court. That's different. Ms. Hilton, that's different. The court. That's a different word, okay? Mr. Copeland. That can get me back in jail? Ms. Hilton, yes. The court. Perjury is, Ms. Hilton, it's not, what you are saying is not perjury. What you are saying is what we call a prior inconsistent statement. Your example that you gave me, what if I said I did something, I know I did not do it, and you said before you didn't do it. That's not perjury. That's a prior inconsistent. Brief pause. Ms. Bumpers. You got to make a decision. So if he starts testifying today, he's going home today? Ms. Hilton, he should, so long as he remains. But if you get up there and be like, if you get to testifying and then we get into it and you start saying, I plead the fifth, we're going to be back in here again, Ms. Bumpers. But if he says he don't record it, everything, he'll be okay. Ms. Hilton, I'm not advising that. But so long as he answers the questions, that's fine. So as long as Mr. Copeland, I did these crimes. I'm telling you that. Ms. Hilton, okay. I don't know what you're talking about, Ms. Bumpers. I think you were saying you want to get up there on the stand and say something. Mr. Copeland, no response. Ms. Bumpers, did we find out if he could talk to his family? No. Brief pause. Ms. Hilton, I mean, if it's okay, we got the sister's number. Mr. Copeland, as my attorney, you got it, Miss Hilton. If y'all want to talk, let me go somewhere where I can't hear you. The judge is over there, so just speak low so he doesn't hear you. The court, hold on. Judge Glanville handed a document to Attorney Caleb Bumpus and exited chambers with Assistant District Attorney Simone Hilton, Investigator Long, Investigator Hamilton, and court reporter Christina Weaver from 10:53 a.m. to 11:28. So I guess y'all was right. That wasn't no hour. But there may be an hour where they don't do anything. Who knows? The court. Okay. All right. Mr. Copley, you have had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Bumpus, your lawyer, Ms. Hilton, the state's counsel. Have you got any other questions? Mr. Copley. No, Your Honor. The court. Is your desire to give testimony today? Mr. Copley. Yes, sir. The court. Okay. All right. Then, do all you have some clothes for Ms. Hilton? I don't know. Let me go take a look. What size are you? Mr. Copley. I can't hear you. Ms. Hilton. What size are you? Mr. Copley. Little. Investigator Hamilton, we had a large jacket for him on Friday. Large. Miss Hilton, you had a jacket for him? Investigator Hamilton, yes. Miss Hilton, oh, but he can't wear a large. The court, what is your waist size? 34. Mr. Copeland, 32. The court, chest, what are you, 34, 36 chest? Miss Hilton, probably 36. Mr. Copeland, not in my chest. What you mean? The court, size. Miss Hilton, what size are you? Small or medium? Mr. Copeland, small or medium? The court, they're going to try to get you some clothes so you don't have to testify wearing that jail uniform, okay, Mr. Copeland? Y'all don't want to show the people how y'all did me? The court, look, Miss Hilton, if we can't find clothes, then you may have to wait until tomorrow. I prefer to go in like this. Miss Hilton, I understand what your preference is, Mr. Copeland. Nah, don't hide it, Miss Bumpus. Can you make him put on clothes? Miss Hilton, no. Mr. Copeland, I want to go in there like this. Miss Hilton, fine with me? The court, all right, okay. Mr. Copeland, y'all ain't going to try to lock me back up for this? Miss Hilton, so long as you testify, we'll get you an order to get you released. Miss Bumpus, today, the court, whose copy is this? Miss Hilton, you got to make sure you come back now. I want to be real clear, Mr. Copeland. When have I ever ran? Miss Hilton, you have not. That's the only thing you have not. The court, whose copy is this? Miss Hilton, that was ours. Do you want a copy? You can take it, though, Miss Bumpus. Okay. Miss Hilton, do you still have yours or you threw it away? Miss Bumpus, I'm going to give him both of these things so he can have some information. Miss Hilton, okay. The court reporter, are we off the record now? The court, are we done? Miss Bumpus, yes, I believe so. The court, okay, we're good. See everybody downstairs in 10 minutes. The proceedings concluded at 11:31 a.m. Certificate, State of Georgia, County of Fulton. I hereby certify that the foregoing transcript was taken down as stated in the caption, and the colloquies, questions and answers were reduced to typewriting under my direction. That foregoing pages represent true and correct record of evidence given. I further certified that in accordance with OCGA 9-11-28A, I am not a relative, employee, attorney, or counsel of any party, nor am I financially interested in this action. The first day of July 2024, Christina Weaver.